Hello and welcome back to Lab 52, a Dynasty Football podcast. I'm one of your hosts, the Tecmo Weave, joined today by my co-host Weapon X and our special guest, returning guest star, ATL All-Time Low. Today's episode is the preseason preview of the namesake of this show, the Lab 52 Dynasty League. Hopefully we have a lot of listeners from this league. But before we get into the show, I always like to give a shout out to our website, lab52dynastyfootball.com. If you want to listen to any of our shows, rate the shows, give us a like, give us a comment. That's terrific. It's a easy place to reach out to us if you have any questions or you just want to go to one place to listen to all the different shows. But before we get into that, it's the injuries and the injury worry. Aston Janty, yesterday ATL he posted, "Oh no, it was a major injury," and then I hop online and everyone's panicking. That's pretty scary when a high end player, the season might be over before it's even started. Thankfully, I only have him on one team, but it still didn't hurt any less. I'm happy that it appears only to be an ankle sprain, but that can range from mild to crippling throughout the year. In Lab 52, Weapon X, you have Aston Janty. What were some thoughts going through your head?
Yeah, the first thought when I first heard it, it was in the chat here with us. ATL mentioned something about it, and I looked it up, and it just made me think more and more about you know preseason and training camp and how it when you play this game, Dynasty Fantasy Football, you're also battling this too. Like you could draft the best team, you can make the best trades, you can draft the best rookies, but you just don't know. This is the variable of fantasy football that you have no control over at all. And when it happens, and thankfully, Genty, it appears it's not season ending, but like you said, it still could be an injury that nags him throughout the year. So my first reaction was, wow, that is a huge, huge injury, and a lot of things are going to happen here in the next couple weeks. I mean, it just really depends on how he looks heading into the season. We don't know. I'm assuming he's going to miss a couple games. But my first reaction was, I'm just thinking about all the players this offseason, big names that have had some kind of injury. We've even seen defensive players, offensive linemen, out for the year. I don't know. Maybe it's like this every year, but I can't. I feel like this year seems a little more. Maybe just because the names are bigger, but it just seems a little more extreme as far as the training camp injuries. I don't know. What are these guys trying to do? Make diving catches out here? I don't know what's going on, but it's yeah. It wasn't a fun moment to see that.
No, and
No.
obviously, I started the excitement in our chat, but I don't think I was alone. It sounded pretty bad when they first started covering it, and I mean, even with an ankle, I was listening to something today, and it gets to be a high ankle sprain, and those are almost as bad as a broken leg to some degree in terms of time off. So it's not like he's out of the woods completely, but obviously you don't want to start the season off with a first round pick not playing for the rest of the season. So any light at the end of the tunnel is going to be great for him. And I think it brings out another point. A lot of people in my leagues were kind of going crazy over Mike Washington, and we kind of back up these players with the idea that someone could get hurt, and then we'll have the next key piece. But I'm not sure, even when you have that one piece and the big guy goes down and he's on somebody else's team, it's no fun. So especially at the beginning of the year, like you said, Weapon X, it's just not fun to see these reports out of training camp.
Not at all. Just like it's not fun to see that Trey Benson got cut. He got cut. He got bumped out of Arizona. I'm hoping he lands somewhere better. I like ATL you were suggesting in Green Bay. Really, anywhere he goes, I tend to think it'll be a better situation than in Arizona. There's just too much competition for the football there.
Always hopes and dreams with Benson, right?
That's all it's been. That's all it's been. But until he's out of the league, like Allen Robinson, who retired today, I'm not going to give up hope. I'll stash him. He can always be a top 25 player on my roster, at least for this year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, guys like Trey Benson, talented players out of college. Sometimes the first few years are rough. Sometimes and it seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But sometimes it just takes latching on to the right team, getting the right situation, having an opportunity to show what you can do. So let's see what happens. I know his stock heading into this year was as low as it can get, but again, Green Bay situation like that, you never know. He lands into a spot, gets healthy, and gets a chance to play a little bit. He's still a young player. You can't really write him off. Obviously, right now he's still a young guy. It's just very right now. It doesn't feel good probably to have him on your team, but you just have to hold at this point.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's get into the bulk of the show here. This is the Lab 52 Dynasty League preseason preview show, which is basically just going to go over the kind of redraft likelihood of the teams with a dynasty flair. Just because you're at the bottom of the barrel, like ATL, doesn't mean you don't have a good dynasty outlook. So I think we'll start it off from here because we've done other shows like this. We're each going to take a handful of teams and then chime in on anything we think is interesting. We like to use Fantasy Pros, and they are looking at the projected standings for the year. And they have all time low ATL, our special guest star. He's going to finish 2-12 with a less than a 1% chance of the playoffs and less than 1% chance of being the champion, but it's not 0%. So you're number 12, ATL, and I believe Weapon X, you're covering his team, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, so this team had obviously there was a 99.9% chance that he was trying to not make the playoffs. Nah, just in reality, obviously, if you look at his team, we know the plan, and we always talked about this before. You got to have some kind of plan with your roster. It's not going to do you any good to just try to truck along and see what happens. You have to have a plan, and he clearly has a plan here. But he starts it off with a tremendous core at quarterback. In Superflex, Drake May, Bo Nix. I mean, you're not going to find a whole lot better than that in a Superflex league. So he's really, really set at quarterback, and that's got to feel good when you're building a team. In a 2 to 3 year window, trying to build something, you got that check mark already marked off there. So that's really good. Um, Cole Payton, Michael Penix Jr. to round it off. Penix, good news for him. Injury news. It looks like he was cleared for 11 on 11, so maybe we'll see him at some point this year. Tua is not doing himself any favors right now. So Michael Penix, we might see him sooner than later. So that's a good start for your squad. The running back core, you got Mike Washington Jr., Kyle Monungai, Seth McGowan, George Halani, and Desmond Claiborne. So with this running back core, you're going to have low point totals because most of these guys are either the backup or they're even further back on the depth chart. But Mike Washington Jr. is going to have some opportunity potentially early on in the season, depending on Ashton Genty, the length of the injury there. Really, really like what I'm seeing so far from him. I think everyone is in preseason making some explosive plays. We knew the type of player he was, and he's showing it now. So he's going to earn himself some playing time even when Genty is healthy. I think we're going to see Mike Washington have a role the entire year, and it should be fun to watch. This part of his team here, the receiver core, as we head into this. This is the part that I really like in terms of dynasty. He really has a really good core here. So I'm going to list off a few of the names that I really like. He's got Casey Concepcion, Tet McMillan, a top 10 dynasty receiver. He's got Jordan Tyson. Yeah, I know the injury, and that's frustrating. Of course it is. But in your team build right here, you can wait on it. You're in a situation to be able to wait for a guy like Jordan Tyson to get healthy, and the upside is off the charts. We all know this already. He just has to find a way to get that injury straightened out. And then Parker Washington, one of the most hyped up players in training camp. So if you look at that, and then you got guys like Jalen Coker, Skylar Bell, Dylan Bell, Aaron Anderson, it's a free agent, and then Jalen Knoll. So obviously lower end players, but I really like the Casey Concepcion, Tet McMillan, and I think that's really good, and Jordan Tyson as well. I think that's a really good core to have as a team that's not expected to succeed this year, but you do have receivers that you can build around. I think they're all talented, and KC is going to be one of the more exciting players to watch this year. I think I'm excited to see him play. He's similar to a Percy Harvin type player where he can just do it all. You know, gadget. He can be a gadget player. He can catch the ball over the middle. He's explosive. It'll be fun to watch what they do out there in Cleveland. So we head to the tight end room here. He's got Isaiah Likely, Terrence Ferguson. So two good young tight ends there. Ferguson is a guy, if he gets opportunity, can really, really shine. I'm excited to see how he can do. It's still crowded there in LA, but the talent's there, no question about it. You got Theo Johnson, Kaseki, and then Andrews. Obviously Isaiah Likely and Terrence Ferguson. That's not too bad. I think Likely has an opportunity here too. It is the same head coach, so it's kind of like, is he going to still be that guy in the back burner on the offense, or is he actually going to step up this year? Is he going to get an opportunity to step up? We'll see. But honestly, though, I think this team, the way it's built, you made it very clear what you're trying to do, and I think what you've done is you have succeeded in that plan. And guys, I don't have the draft picks up on my page right now. I know you have several. How many do you have first rounders for 2027?
I've got 3 picks in every round.
Okay, 3 picks in every round. So yeah, you set it up. You set this up exactly how you should. You knew what you were gonna do. You made a point of it, and you're setting yourself up very well. You know, heading into a stat clash next year. Yeah, obviously you're not expected to contend this year, but you're okay with that. And I think you're doing a good job with this specific build.
All right, I just want to really quick, comment on my free agent here. You got to be real careful if my wife hears that she's not going to be excited that I'm, a free agent. So was curious to hear what you said about me on
Aaron Harrison is a free agent. It's showing it here on he's a 5'8" receiver from LSU, undrafted. 23 years old. I don't believe you're 23 years old. I mean,
this.
unless you're a different Aaron Harrison that I'm talking to you right now. But Aaron Anderson is an LSU receiver, 23 years old. He right now currently, as every other player does, has an injury, undisclosed, but that's who that is. Your wife can be rest assured you're not a free agent. You have a free agent player on your team.
That's right. Okay, just to clear it up. Yes, I am not that person.
And ATL, I do have one quick question for you. You have Mike Washington. Are you able to share with us? Did anyone message you for trades for Mike Washington yesterday?
Actually, no. And
No. Okay.
I actually kind of forgot I had him in this league because I was looking at the other teams. Then I just happened to catch my eye this morning. So no, I didn't hear about it. Anything.
Yeah, I saw in Sleeper, they're able to pull up all the different trades that have happened, and somewhere, some way, somebody gave a first and a second for Mike Washington in some Sleeper league. I guess that can span the quite a spectrum of
Yeah.
teams, from your hometown farm league or uh, you know just a joke league to somebody that actually panicked in a competitive league.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, what do you guys think, Mike Washington? So, in a 2026 season term, say that we find out in the next, week or so, Gentry's going to miss the first month of the season. Where does that bring Mike Washington in a redraft? Do you think that puts him in the 6th to 7th round range? Because right now he's a guy that's late round, just handcuff. So he is going to be someone that's going to shoot up the draft board if we do find out Gentry's going to miss, extended period.
really depends on how long he's going to miss. If
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just on the pup for 4 weeks, you still know that there's no long-term future with Mike Washington. Like, I think most of us could, at least I could be talked into some higher price for him if it was, oh, he's out for the whole year, Janty's done. Then I go, okay, it's a 1-year rental, and maybe somehow this becomes habitual with Janty. And we're going to get the guy that's going to hit the ground running, but also, too, to just assume because he is the backup at the moment that they're just going to give the keys to the car to Mike Washington and be like, it's all yours. Here you go. That to me just seems too simple.
Yeah.
But I think in a redraft, I certainly would take him a little bit later than the 6th round. I mean, maybe he goes from very late, 15th round, 14th round to 8, 9, 10.
Okay. Yeah.
Depending upon how you're going to build out your team. If you're somehow still doing the zero running back strategy and you're gonna stream players, I don't know. But in dynasty sense, in a league like this, I mean, I don't know. Depending how late you think your second's gonna be, I guess maybe you could give a second for Mike Washington. Still feels like it'd be a tough person to trade for, knowing that there isn't much of a clear future there for him. And does your team really need questionable running back starting quality for a month? Like, how bad does your team need that you would give up a draft pick? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the best
So
thing to do is to look for the Genti owner and see what you can get from him. Honestly, that's the play if you do have Mike Washington Jr. And if you don't get an offer, that's a good return. Just hold him. Just hold him and see what happens. Because like Tecmo said, if this, I'm not saying it will happen, but if Genti becomes a player who struggles with injuries in his career, they have another young running back that they can turn to. So.
yeah, and real quick, I mean, in terms of like redraft, I think if you were told tomorrow that Genty was out for a month, I think the reaction would be pretty knee jerk, and you'd see a lot of the redraft leagues jump him up close to the sixth round, maybe. You're probably looking at somewhere by Jonathan Brooks, which I think he's sneaking into like the seventh now. If you're going on like best ball drafts or anything, or any kind of home leagues that have people that know what they're doing. But he is kind of an interesting player in that regard because you don't get a lot of opportunities for like that kind of build with a running back late that can play right away in a zero RB build. This would give you the opportunity to get some of those other guys that you pick up later, Woody Barks, something like that. Maybe he can take the runway and go. So I agree. I wouldn't want to spend too much because he's not guaranteed a ton, but in a certain build, I think he'd be worth something.
You're already campaigning to get something good out of him. I like that idea.
Well, yeah. What are we doing here?
100%. You got the floor, and now it's time for a commercial for Mike Washington. Why you should buy him. But all right, well, ATL, I think you've done a good job. Your team has some direction, and you got some talent. That's the nice part too about when you punt a year. It's easy in a sense to have nothing of value but a lot of draft picks. It's another thing to go, okay, I actually have a foundation of some players and some picks. Um, so hopefully it works out for you. But let's move on to number 11, and that's a team called the Thin Blue Line. They're predicted to finish one game better than ATL at 3-11. Equal chance to make the playoffs, which is less than 1%, and less than 1% the champion. Who's going to be covering Thin Blue Line for us today?
That will be me again as well. I'm going to cover Thin Blue Line. Can you quick round off his draft picks? I just don't have the picks, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Can you round off his picks and let me know what he has?
I can do that for you. Let me take a look here. This is up to date information. He has a very similar build to ATL, but just not as many draft picks. He has 3 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth.
Okay.
So he has less draft picks, but at least the meaningful picks, he has 3, just like ATL does, and 1 less second.
All right, cool. So yeah, again, similar to ATL, there's another team who is punting the year one, has 3 first-round picks for 2027. And he's got Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Shador Sanders, and Deshaun Watson, who was just named week 1 starter. So he does have 3 starters heading into the season here. Jordan Love, obviously the foundation of his roster here at quarterback. He's I would say in the 10 to 15 range, anywhere from there. That's where you'll probably see him in a lot of rankings. And then at running back here, he's got Chris Brooks, Zach Charbonnet, Ollie Gordon, Chuba Hubbard, Jordan James, Ty Johnson, Quinshon Judkins. So obviously it's nice to have Judkins there. Hopefully he can get healthy. Another player who's been banged up here in training camp. And then, thinking about his production for this year, it's going to be coming from guys like Quinshon Judkins and Zach Charbonnet. See what happens when he comes back. But that's another good future piece. Maybe he latches on to a team after this season and can be someone that you can have on your roster and be able to get some production from next year. At receiver, he's got John Dotson. He's got Torrey Horton, Jerry Jeudy, Xavier Legette, Jalen McMillan. He's got Amon St. Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Savion Williams, Michael Wilson, and he also has Ashton Doolin from the Indianapolis. So yeah, this receiver core maybe not so much, as far as future assets. Yeah, it's really nice to have Amon St. Brown. It is. But in this team build, it's just, I don't know. In this team build, it's kind of tough to imagine having him on your team and not be, you're not going to be able to compete with this specific roster right now. So obviously, I'm sure he's already considered what to do with Amon St. Brown. Maybe maybe in season he'll think to deal him and see what we can get from a contender. And obviously, you're going to get a lot because he's as consistent a player you're going to find in fantasy. So that's a good guy to have on your team now. But I think that's a guy that he may look to deal at some point to continue to stack those picks for next year. And then at tight end, he's got Evan Ingram, Tyler Higbee, Sam Laporta, Colby Parkinson, Jake Tongas, and Tommy Tremble. So obviously Sam Laporta, another guy with another injury. The long list of injuries this offseason. It's unbelievable. But yeah, hopefully he can get back there early in the season, not miss too much time. But that's a good tight end to have on your roster. And in a taxi squad here, he's got Chris Bell and Denzel Boston. So two good young receivers to have. But overall, I think ATL's roster is a little bit stronger, I would say, because of the receiver core in dynasty terms. But yeah, I think there are pieces here for sure. There's pieces on this team that are going to be nice to build around, and the 3 first-round picks, that's the key for his team. And I think if he is going to deal St. Brown, I don't know if he's planning that or not, but if he is, I think he's going to still be able to get something really good for him at any point during the year. There's going to be a lot of teams that are contending that if they do have their first rounder, they're going to deal for St. Brown. I think that'll be what's interesting to see with this team. But overall, yeah, I think it's I think this roster. I think this roster is going to obviously struggle to get a lot of points, but I think he also has a direction, and he's doing a good job with that direction.
ATL, what do you think about your competition for the number 1 pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think if he sells Amon-Ra, he's got a pretty good path to it. If it's me, I'm probably trying to get rid of some of the running back points. They just sneak in when you don't need them. So that's what I would first do. But I think we'll probably have a pretty good run to the end here. I do agree. Probably lean on my side in terms of the receivers and the quarterback points, which then makes me nervous. But um, I currently have quite a few fewer players than him, so that's good.
Yeah, I agree with everyone that yeah, I'm imagining Amon-Ra St. Brown is just he's just planted in there, just waiting for in-season production. Um, it's just a question of what you're gonna get, and I'm sure he'll get something pretty decent. And also, I swear I saw an article too talking about Sam Laporta, and like he's just been injured all off season, and now a talk that he might not be ready week 1, that he aggravated another injury. Um, but that isn't going to matter for a team like this. So, but I tend to think, between the two teams, I don't know. I guess I would have to wait and see kind of what he comes away with when he gets rid of Amon-Ra St. Brown, because there's some nice pieces here. But as it stands, I prefer how your team looks at the moment, ATL, if we're looking to punt in year 1. Um, but there's still some pieces to be hopeful for. All right, well, let's move on to number 10. That's a team called Barrel Proof. All of a sudden, the teams get much better at this point. According to Fantasy Pros, they're going to finish 6-8, 18% chance of the playoff, number 10 in the league, and less than a 1% chance at the championship. Weapon X, I believe this is you. Is this you as well?
Yeah, we did not plan this. This wasn't planned to have Weapon X go over and over again, but it is me again.
You gotta lose your voice.
we wanted to, kind of disperse it, but hey, we're all going to get the same amount of teams, and it's no problem. So yeah, Barrel Proof's who I have, and when you told me he was 10th in Fantasy Pros, I was very surprised by that because every time I see his roster, I always think of him being a pretty good team. A pretty good team that can win some games for sure. So let's go through this roster here. Barrel Proof has Joe Burrow, Jackson Dart. Yeah, I mean that's right there about as good as it gets. That's very similar to ATL's. Two high end QBs to have in Dynasty, and he also has Bryce Young as well. So he's heading into this season with three starters at the quarterback position. That's always a great thing to have in Superflex. But yeah, two Jackson Dart though, we'll talk about him in a second. He's going to be a very interesting guy. I mean, he can't be getting crushed in preseason games and expect to see him out there all year. It's yeah, he's either getting crushed because no one's blocking for him, or he is getting crushed because he's trying to run everyone over. So it's we'll see how his season plays out. But yeah, I think it's a good quarterback room to have here for sure. Joe Flacco, JJ McCarthy, Jameis Winston, those are the depth pieces there at quarterback for him. Running back, he's got Jaden Blue, Jonathan Brooks, Taj Brooks, Caleb Johnson, Bijan Robinson, Dylan Sampson, Tajay Spears, and Kenneth Walker. Yeah, so again, when you told me he was 10th, that's why I was very surprised because when a team has Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker, and now if Jonathan Brooks is going to take this job and run with it, if he is going to be a RB2 type player for your roster, this is a really strong running back room to have. Yeah, you head into the season with Bijan and Kenneth Walker, you're feeling great. You're feeling great about that. It's two high end running backs on really good situations. And his receiver room here, he's got I can never pronounce his name. I'm gonna let Tecmo pronounce this.
Oh, Elic Iomanner.
Yeah, I'll let you pronounce that one. I've always struggled with that one, but that's yeah, he's a Tennessee receiver there. Jack Beck, Camden Brown, T. Higgins, Travis Hunter, Michael Pittman, Carnell Tate, and then BTJ. Yeah, I like some pieces there. Carnell Tate, obviously there's going to be a learning curve there for him. He's not going to head into this year and beat Jamar Chase right off the bat. I don't think anyone really truly expected that to begin with, but yeah, he's still, still a high end asset to have in Dynasty. Really, really excited to see how he does this year. T. Higgins, you'll get some production from him week to week. And then BTJ is an X factor on his team. If he can bounce back and have anything close to the year he had 2 years ago, that's going to be a big player for him on his team this year. So that's the X factor for this team, I think. And Jack Beck, Las Vegas, we've talked about many times. Someone will have to step up out of the receiver core. Brock Bowers obviously will get massive amount of targets. He's going to have a monster year as long as he stays healthy. But someone will step up out of the receiver core. Jack, I haven't heard a whole lot of great things this offseason about Jack Beck. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Trey Tucker, I think, is the guy that's been talked about the most as far as being successful there, and Jalen Naylor as well, but maybe to a lesser extent. And the receiver core, the tight end core here, he's got Jake Ferguson, Pat Freiermuth, Cole Kmet, Luke Musgrave, Ben Sinnott. No one of note there that's gonna really be a big time player. Jake Ferguson's fine. It's a fine tight end to have. It's not, you're not going to win your league because of him, but it's okay. It's okay to have a guy like that. He was off to a tremendous start early in the season and kind of faded off last year, but still in a very high powered offense and still going to have a chance to get touchdowns in that offense. And then on his taxi squad, he's got Jeremy Bernard, Jacoby Lane, very, very nice prospect there. He's got Eli Stowers and then Michael Trigg. So yeah, that's his roster. And again, if you guys can round off the draft picks for me, that's my fault for being unprepared there. What does he have draft pick wise? I think he has 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
He does.
Yeah,
I don't think they're all his own. I think maybe the third is switch with someone, but he's got a first through a fourth.
So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, standard
1, 2,
there for
4, 4.
1, 2, 4, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 4, 4. So pretty standard there. He's got his first round pick, which is great for this roster. But yeah, I don't think this is a roster that I wouldn't be totally surprised if they finish pretty much, in the hunt, I would say. 10th, I think they're better than a 10th team, in my opinion. Let's see what you guys think of that.
Yeah, looking at the team, you're right. It's hard to understand how Fantasy Pros goes, okay, you start one QB and you got one Superflex and you got Joe Burrow and Jackson Dart. All right. And you're going to start 2 running backs, and you got Bijan and Kenneth Walker. Okay. You're going to start 3 wide receivers, and you got T. Higgins, BTJ, Michael Pittman, Carnell Tate. I mean, maybe that's partially where, there's no true number 1 in that group. I mean, Carnell Tate, I don't know, Cam Ward, man, I get it. It's just the preseason, but it's hard not to feel a little panicky. That I got Cardinals hate in a couple places, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter how good of a player he is if Cam Ward can't get him the ball. But I'm hoping somehow Brian Daboll has the answer for this. I don't know, but we certainly haven't seen that in the preseason. So maybe a bit of an underperforming, but some depth in the wide receiver room, and then you only have Jake Ferguson at tight end. So maybe this is one of those teams that gets knocked just due to depth concerns. But it is also the first year of a startup, so most teams aren't going to be too deep. I'm not sure if they're much beyond number 10, but could they finish somehow 6th? Sure. If Joe Burrow has a great year and Jake Ferguson plays like he did for that stretch last year, um, and Bijan and Kenneth Walker do what they're kind of being drafted, at least at the positions they're being drafted at to do. Yeah, this team could be competitive, but not everyone can be a playoff team. So we're just going off of what Fantasy Pros has to say. So maybe it is slightly critical on their end.
Yeah, and I think there's a few pieces here that could really I don't know if volatile is the right way to say it. I think they could swing either way with Brooks, and I've heard a lot of good things about Spears coming out of camp. He played, I think, double the reps of Pollard this weekend, and has been getting pretty good reviews. So, if you're putting those 2 guys in your flex spot and they work out, you're talking about a completely different team than if those guys are just kind of nothing, right? So yeah, I think there's variance that's here with this team. Um, Jack Besh is not going to play. Malik Benson's already passed him. He's a drop.
Guess we'll have to wait and see. And you were questioning whether is Barrel Proof better than this. For people that aren't in the league, this is a league that's set up with 3 divisions. So in divisional play, you play your own division mates twice, and then you play everybody else once. So Fantasy Pros is taking that into account for your projected finish. And it actually has, when you look at team rankings and power rankings, it has Barrel Proof finishing. They're the 8th ranked team. So they're slightly better. And this might be a good segue into our next team because it actually has the number 10 team, Weapon X. It's you. It has you at number 10 for power rankings.
Yeah, not very powerful.
No, and that'll be my segue here into the number 9 team according to Fantasy Pros, and I'm covering it. It's my co-host Weapon X. He's predicted to finish 6-8, 22% chance at going to the playoffs, and a 1%. Now all of a sudden we're moving to at least 1% chance of the championship. Yeah, no, I mean, I can kind of see it. Maybe it's easier to see it when it's not your own team. I can see what the concern is. And it's been sort of the concern that I've had for your team. And I've been wondering kind of, well, like, how are you going to fix it? But then I'm like, it's not my team to fix. It's your team to fix. And you do have some really good core assets here. It's just when you have good core assets, well, that's a great foundation to build a team, but it doesn't make a championship team. And then when you don't have any of your draft picks, then I kind of question what went wrong. Because if you don't have any of your draft picks, you should be at least competitive. And we'll start at the very top here. You got Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. That's your quarterback 3. And you got Sam Darnold and Tyler Shaw. And so I know we've talked about that in previous episodes that you're not prioritizing quarterbacks, even though this is a 6-point touchdown league. But there are other ways to score points, and you're hoping that you got 3 of them, you'll get the bye weeks covered. I think that's a valid strategy. Um, it just scares me a little bit if, say, the Raiders are complete trash and Tyler Shaw was just a flash in the pan last year, and he has a sophomore regression. That could make life really hard on the quarterback position. But at least you have 3 right now, and Darnold looked really good last year, so, running back, that's the highlight of this team. You have James Cook, Aston Janty, and Jeremiah Love. You took Janty and Love, end of the first, start of the second. I think a lot of people probably did that this year just with the way values were falling, and that's hard to fault that, especially when we saw how productive running backs were last year, and then you get the main guy in Buffalo. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just kind of keep waiting for the James Cook experience to dry up, but it really hasn't. And there's no clear reason why it should. There's no specific competition, and it doesn't look like Josh Allen's going to get any worse. It's still going to be a high-powered offense, so that's where the bulk of the points are going to come from with this team. Uh, and you also have Tyler Algier, which is very nice. From the world's worst fantasy advice, go get someone else's handcuff. I'm glad you stuck with the Lab 52 advice. You can get other people's handcuffs, but also having your own is nice too, because you can't predict the injuries. So go and get a handcuff. Go and get Brian Robinson like you did. I like that because, yeah, Bijan has an equal chance to get hurt as Aston Janty does. But is a question of how good is the handcuff. And Brian Robinson, at least at one point, was considered to be a NFL starting running back, and that wasn't that long ago. Going into your wide receivers, here's where it feels a little thin. And I'll open this one up to the group. Kayshon Boutte got traded to the Texans, and I was all hyped for the Tank Dell comeback story. I was like, he's gonna do it, and I remember when he was going for a first round pick a couple years ago, looking all explosive. Then he had that horrific injury, and then everything was lining up with the Higgins injury for Tank Dell to play a significant role. And not to say that he can't, but that kind of burner down the field role, isn't that what Kayshon Boutte does? That's kind of the Tank Dell role. I don't know. It can't be good news for Tank getting Boutte, but it certainly can't hurt C.J. Stroud. Any thoughts about the Kayshon Boutte trade to the Texans?
Yeah, I thought that was a good trade for the Texans. I think it was. I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Tank Dell, it's really cool to see him potentially be ready for the season, but they have to be, they're a team that could really be strong this year. Their defense is as good as it gets, and they have good pieces on offense. So I think getting a guy like that to kind of take the top off the defense, and we know what he can do. He's got tremendous speed. Had a stretch there where seemed like he was getting a 40-yard touchdown every week at one point from Drake May. So yeah, good trade for them. Definitely doesn't help Tank Dell, but again, Tank Dell isn't someone that you should be relying on. It's just cool to see him out on the field. I think that's just the best part about it.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. Good to see Tank just making it back any way he can. I think the deal is great for both sides on that. In terms of the player and the team, I think Boutte really serves a role that they need. He was something extraordinary, like third in the league on deep pass percentage receptions last year. I mean, it was something ridiculous where he's up there at the top of the league. So when you put him there, and then you've got Nico kind of operating more underneath with that conglomerate of other receivers they've got. I mean, you got to think that Noel is going to do something this year, but they love Hutchinson too. So I, those guys all seem like the same guy to me. So this is a perfect fit for them to get another big body in there.
They got a place to call to Will Fuller. Come out of retirement, Will Fuller. We need you. No, but let's get back to Weapon X's wide receivers here. Your main stars of the show. You have Luther Burden, you got Emeka Egbuka, you got Makai Lemon, and think that's kind of it. Those are the main stars of the show. I mean, you have some depth here. You got Mike Evans, got Jalen Naylor. Um, I'm only kind of going with the big names. Um, and when I looked at some of my teams this year, I was like, man, some teams I'm just relying on rookies too much. Um, I'm expecting because you were drafted highly that out of the gate things are just going to kind of fall how we want them to fall, or I'm assuming that things are going to evolve as the narratives suggest they might. Like Luther Burton, we're just assuming he's just going to step in year 2. Okay, DJ Moore is gone. Now he's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I get it. That that is it, one of many likely outcomes. Um, but with this team, it kind of pigeonholes Emeka Egbuka, and it forces Luther Burden to have to pretty much to have to be that good. Um, and the assumption is that Mike Evans still has more left to give. Losing Ricky Pearsall, that certainly didn't hurt his stock. It at least opens up some, more targets for him. But I don't know, the wide receiver strength of this team, Egbuka, Luther Burden, I love those guys for dynasty value. But as far as competing, I can see why Fantasy Pros questioned it. And then it really questions it at tight end here. It's a tight end premium league. I mean, it's not a crazy 2 tight end, um, extra premium league. It's just, you get a .5 extra. So 1.5 points per reception for a tight end. But Dallas Goedert, Gunnar Helm, and then Dawson Knox. And we're going to assume Dawson Knox is not the starter. But I've seen some depth charts that say he might be. Regardless, Buffalo doesn't seem to utilize the tight end much. Um, and then Gunnar Helm, man, if Tate isn't getting the ball, when's Gunnar Helm going to get the ball? And that leaves us all with Dallas Goedert. And as a Philly fan, I mean, you probably watch a lot more games and keep in touch with that more than I would. Um, it's hard for me to get hyped about Dallas Goedert, but maybe he'll surprise me. Um, so I think generously speaking, yeah, is this team the 10th ranked team in the league? It's possible. Could it be the 8th ranked team in the league? Sure. Um, could it be the 5th ranked team in the league? I think I wouldn't be being honest if I said that was true. So I guess I can see why it's ranked here, even though it has some really nice pieces for the future. And as we've talked about all offseason, you want players that can gain value. If they have a good year, they're going to gain value. And that's going to happen with Janty. It's going to happen with Love. Certainly Mendoza and Shaw and Egbuka and Burden and Makai Lemon. All of those guys, if they have good years, yes, they will gain value. Mike Evans has a good year, it doesn't matter. He's going to lose value no matter what. Um, so I don't know. I know certainly if it was me, I might be looking to diversify, move some things around, break apart some of these big name assets because it seems like this team could use a little bit more depth. ATL, do you have any highlights on Weapon X's team?
Yeah, going back to your handcuff statement, I think one of the interesting things on Weapon X's team is he actually has all 3 of his big name running backs handcuffed here, and um, I think that serves a pretty strong purpose in terms of like safety. But I'm guessing, you're missing out possibly on one of those guys being able to play with the starter that you've got as well. So it might be, going along with trying to sell one of these big name running backs. You could probably sell the pair, diversify that a little bit, and maybe you've got, another starting running back and a little bit lower tier, but somebody that could pop or something. Agree on the receivers. I do think there are some good names in here. Caleb Douglas has looked really good so far. I think Weapon X was able to get him really late in the draft. Looks like he's on his taxi squad even. So that's a nice piece. And then he's got Omar Cooper. So you've got a couple of very young receivers there that look good. And then Lemon, I think, is the big one to me. what's he going to be this year versus over the next 5. And I think over the next 5 is a lot easier to predict. This year might be a little chippy, but um, yeah, I think one of the other things to think about in tight end premium like this, where it's only an extra half a point per reception, is that doesn't add up a ton with every tight end either. So you do get to a point where it's a little bit of spent money. They're not catching 10 balls, they're only catching 4. So you get an extra couple of points a game. But those 4 go along with the touchdown in some degree. So I think you can make up for the tight end room here. I like Raritan a lot too. So I think that's a nice, you get a lot of nice young pieces actually.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately it's probably a better dynasty team than it is a redraft team. So, there's a lot of good pieces for the future, but I'll let you have the closing word on the feedback you received, Weapon X. What do you
No,
think?
I appreciate it, guys. I do. And what you said there at the end, Tech, that's how I feel about my team too. I think it's definitely a better dynasty roster than it is a redraft this season, and that's kind of how I built it. And obviously these injuries in the preseason with Ibuka, Burden, Genti now, Evans is banged up. That's not helping anyone in a redraft sense, but I feel good overall about the pieces that they can gain value, and if they have solid years, these guys, if they gain value, the roster becomes more valuable overall. So yeah, in a dynasty sense, I feel really good about the roster. I really do, but I'm not. I mean, if things roll right, you never know. Anything can happen. Just creep into the playoffs, you never know. But overall, in a dynasty sense, though, I do feel pretty good about the team and the younger assets that could possibly emerge.
Very good. Very good. Well, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. And you're right, just make it to the playoffs, and almost anything can happen. Moving on, though, here we're at number 8, and I believe I think this is you, ATL Jaden Daniels Den. Um, he's predicted to finish 7-7, 37% chance of the playoffs, so still kind of a long shot, and a 2% chance at the championship.
Yeah, and so just to do a quick rundown, it looks like he's got a first next year, he's got 2 seconds and 2 thirds, no fourths. So sitting pretty good, definitely ahead of the pack in terms of draft picks. Not crazy, but set up well to continue to add. So I'll go probably through a little bit on starting with who I assume they're going to be starting most weeks, and then we'll kind of round it off there. But at quarterback, he sits pretty good here. He's got Jaden Daniels and Matthew Stafford, and then he's got Ty Simpson kind of in the wings for Stafford, which obviously isn't going to do any good right now, but is a very nice piece to have, especially with a quarterback that's likely only playing another year or two. And then you've got a quarterback potentially set up to be in the Sean McVay system long term with a team that's invested in you. He does have Jacoby Brissett, so a little bit of flexibility at the beginning of the year at minimum. So the quarterbacks are okay. Um, the running backs, we really get down to Kyron Williams, and then it's kind of a hodgepodge of what do we want to put together for a running back two here. So quick look at it, we've got Blake Corum, JCM, Gainwell, Rodriguez, Chris Rodriguez, and Emmanuel Wilson, although I don't think he's going to get as much run as originally thought going out to Seattle. So what we're going to have to do is piece this together and decide which running back we're playing every week, right? Which is not very fun most of the time. And being honest, my 2 favorite running backs on his team play for the same NFL team and are Kyron and Corum. And so it doesn't feel good to be locked into the same team as potentially your top 2. I know that probably I'm in the minority there, and most people would like JCM over him. I'm not sold on that, but all that to say, he does have plenty of depth there, if nothing super flashy. Going into the receivers, we've got Drake London, Roma Dunze, Terry McLaurin, and Garrett Wilson kind of headline the bunch. Stephon Diggs, I think, will be a very good player this year, and potentially for one or two more. So that's a nice depth piece that was probably very cheap in our draft. Overall, I would say that's probably above average in terms of a wide receiver room for him. Definitely has some firepower with London if they can get that offense rolling. He showed plenty of promise last year. Um, the games that he was playing before he got hurt, putting up 25 plus points every time, certainly looked like he was taking off. And then you got McLaurin, Odunze, and Wilson are gonna be pretty good for you as well. So I like that wide receiver room. Um, in terms of the tight end, he's got Tyler Warren, obviously at the top of the list. Uh, he's got Chig, and then he's got some younger guys, Max Clare and Roush and Colson Yankoff, who I've been seeing a lot of, but I don't know anything about. Um, Certainly a fun name.
That's
But
correct. He just gets a lot of runway probably because of his name.
yeah, and rightfully so. But I mean, overall, I don't think it's bad. I think there's some um, it's okay. It does feel a little bit middle of the road to me. It does feel like maybe they've got to decide which way to go, and they have enough ammo to put their chips in this year and probably make some changes that would, add a running back to go with Kyron. I think would be the big one I see. But overall, I'd say if they got a hot streak, certainly you could definitely catch fire with some of these running backs, and then all of a sudden you're kind of off to the races. But if none of them emerge as the number one, or with an injury likely in front of them or something else, it's hard to see this team competing in the playoffs too far.
Yeah, I'd say they definitely need to, according to Fantasy Pros, they're the deepest team there. They have the number one ranked bench on the draft rankings. And when we talked earlier how you can be predicted to finish in this case, he's predicted to finish in eighth, but his power ranking is actually number six. Um, and with the number one bench, I think it's just, yeah, maybe it's just a question of too much. You have all this bench strength, but then you have a bunch of question marks at running back, where you could I don't know, maybe move some of these pieces together to get a clear upgrade somewhere else. Um, but I guess it's all about that owner's management strategy. Weapon X, anything you want to say about Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much what you guys were saying. I think with this team is it could be really be carried by this quarterback room. If his quarterbacks are producing at the level that we know they can, it can mask a little bit of the weaknesses he does have at running back because his receiver room is strong. He's going to get really good, solid production weekly from guys like Drake London and Garrett Wilson. Those two receivers are heavily targeted in that offense, so he should have a pretty good floor there. And if he gets some production from Stephon Diggs, that could be an X factor player. And I think Rome Odunze is another guy who he can put in there, and especially if Luther Burden gets off to a kind of a slow start to start the year, Rome could possibly start to really get himself in a position to have a really good year this year. So yeah, I mean, and then obviously Tyler Warren, and he's an elite tight end to have in any format. So I think there are good pieces. The running back room obviously there's gonna need to be somebody to step up, but if his quarterbacks play well, he can be a playoff team. I could see that.
Yeah, 100% on the playoff team. When we talked earlier about, what teams could finish better, it definitely Jaden Daniels. I think maybe he must just be in a difficult division that they're ranking him this low. Because as we've seen, injuries matter, and it's kind of like having we've talked in the off season, buying insurance isn't fun. It's not exciting, but when you have it's last man standing when you're getting to week 15, 16, 17, this is the type of team that may have the firepower to make it there and to succeed, especially if Matthew Stafford has a year that's anywhere still in the same ballpark that he had last year. So we'll move on here to the final non-playoff team, and it's New York's finest. And while he is a non-playoff team, there's basically 3 teams it thinks are kind of right around actually 4. It's not sure who's going to make the playoffs. So pretty much the next 4 teams we talk about, one of them is going to be out and the other 3 would be in. But for the sake of this show, New York's finest is going to be number 7. Going to finish 8-6. He has a 67% chance of the playoffs, though. So that just tells you Fantasy Pros isn't even that convinced that he isn't going to make the playoffs. And his championship percentage is 7%. So that's so far as the best that we've seen. His power rankings. Let's take a look here, and you have him number 9. So you're going to finish 7th, but you're 9th. Granted, it's only looking at a handful of points one way or another. It says his team has the 9th best starters and the 8th best bench. So ultimately, what can we take from that? We can take that it thinks his team is kind of middle of the road. Let's see if we agree with that. I'm going to scroll down to his team here and add him up here. Here he is. All right, at quarterback, and I'm not going to cover backups unless they're interesting. He has Jared Goff, Geno Smith, and Cam Ward. Ugh. Jared Goff, I like it. That's certainly once we get into redraft season, there's no one other more than a player like Jared Goff that I can feel comfortable with starting. But all of a sudden, if you say, well, okay, I don't have Jared Goff this week, now you're counting on Geno and Cam Ward. That's going to hurt. While he technically has 3 quarterbacks, he only has one that I feel comfortable with. That's a starter. Where Geno might not even be starting by the end of the year, which is okay. I don't think this was a high pick he spent on Geno. And then the hope is that you're picking Cam Ward and you're seeing some development. So don't be like me and panic in the preseason. At running back, let's see who we got here. He's got Jonathan Taylor. I like that. Javonte Williams. But then other than that, really nobody of note. Got Tyrone Tracy, Sean Tucker, Devin Singletary, Samaje P. Ryan, Devin Neal. I'm not thinking you're going to be hoping. So this is a 2-man show. Jonathan Taylor and Javonte Williams. Those are our 2 very good redraft running backs, and you got a good 1 redraft quarterback. So moving on to wide receiver, this is the owner of Kayshon Boutte. He's got Zay Flowers. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Puka Nacua and Wan'Dale Robinson. So I guess we can say this becomes the strength of this team. People like Marvin Mims, Tez Johnson, Demario Douglas, Isaiah Bond, they don't really specifically count. So we move on to tight end, A.J. Barner, Oronde Gadsden, Hunter Henry, and Dalton Schultz. And I picked up Oronde Gadsden in a league I recently did a draft in, and I keep seeing all the stuff. Like he is not getting the first team reps in the preseason. And then I'm seeing critics saying that's the only meaningful thing that you can get, that you can take away from watching the preseason games. Who is starting and who isn't? That's all that matters. Don't worry about the production. And I keep seeing it's what Charlie Kolar and David Njoku that seem to be starting on the Chargers, and not Oronde Gadsden. So I guess he would still have Hunter Henry, who's been productive, but not an exciting tight end room. Overall, I don't know. I mean, when I kind of look at it, I mean, you have Jonathan Taylor and Javonte Williams and a very good wide receiver group and Jared Goff. I guess all of that could guide you to the playoffs. But we're lacking a lot of depth here, and we don't really have any sort of. If Oronde Gadsden is really going to be the tight end 2 on the Chargers, and for some reason Mike McDaniels is saying, no, I want the vet, I want David Njoku. All the stuff we saw last year, that's gone. And A.J. Barner, while a starter, is not a star. Dalton Schultz is not a star. Hunter Henry, he could end up, the number 3, maybe number 2 target on the team for targets. I don't know. I mean, I guess when I look at this team, I'm more convinced that Jaden Daniels' Den would make the playoffs than I would be New York's Finest. I'll open that up to two of you. If you're comparing the two teams, are you seeing more holes with Jaden Daniels' Den or New York's Finest?
Yeah, I would say Jaden Daniels' Den has a little more depth. I think the struggle that this team could have is if he experiences any injury in his running back room, it's going to be tough. That's going to be tough to rebound from because he doesn't have the handcuff to his running back that I could see here. No, I don't see one. And so now you're down to one legitimate starter, and that's tough. So the running back depth is tough, but I do like that you could start Zay Flowers, Justin Jefferson, and Puka every week. I like that a lot, and I think that if those guys produce at the level that we accustomed to see them produce, if Justin Jefferson has a bounce back year, that's going to be the strength of his team, clear as day, and that can really really help. Any other deficiencies on this roster that could help because this is PPR and those guys are PPR beasts. Those guys are going to be able to put up big numbers. But yeah, again, you're going to need something from the tight end room, and you're going to need to stay healthy at running back. That's going to be the biggest question mark. Can his running back core remain on the field? And they're pretty durable running backs that he has. Obviously, Javonte Williams overall in his career hasn't been, but last year, yeah, he stayed on the field last year, and we'll like to see him stay on the field as well this year. But yeah, I think that's it. That's what it comes down to with this team. I think, the running back core being a little lacking of depth is going to be the question mark, is what I would say.
So I think it's interesting. I think you've got a very pretty much a juxtaposition of these two teams where you've got one in terms of Jaden Daniels' Den with kind of all of that depth, but not really sure who we're going to start. This team has all of the gold medal winners here, and we've got top assets that can be broken into 2 to 3. So it's hard to look at it right now and be overly confident, but all you need to do is break down maybe one of those two top receivers. I mean, for Puka, can you get two guys that score 240 points each instead of having Puka, who I'm looking at the 25 points, who had 387? The point being, can you fill out this roster a little bit better by adding to another spot while downplaying that one, but overall upgrading the entire point system for your team? And I think they've got the pieces here to do that. It'll just take a little work. I wouldn't be comfortable right now because I'm not sure who your 10th player is. Probably a tight end, I guess. But yeah, I don't that part I don't like going through. If you don't know who the last flex is on your team or it's not clear, then I want to make a move and make sure that I know that that's clear.
I like that. Yeah, it's an alert. One of these stars has got to get shattered. We got to break them up. Because the assets on this team, they're not all young. Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson, even Javonte Williams. This is a win now type of team. So I think I like that advice. Well, it Fantasy Pros though, as I said, 67%. They're not certainly sold that he isn't going to make the playoffs. They're just not certain. Now we'll move on to number 6. That's a team called Hoka's, named after the shoe. They are predicted to finish 8-6, 67% chance of the playoffs, so just like New York's Finest. But strange enough, this is a reflection of the division that they're in. The next two teams, 5 and 4, have a 7% chance of winning the championship, just like New York's Finest did at number 7. But Hoka's here at number 6. They think he has a 12% chance at the championship. So while he has a better chance, he has actually the third best odds to win the championship. It shows it being a tough sledding to get into the playoffs. Who's going to cover Hoka's for us?
I got Hokas. I want to cover Hokas. tough sledding. I don't see it tough sledding. If this team stays healthy, this is a playoff lock. I'm going to say that right now. There's too many strong players on this team. So he's started off here with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I mean, that's about as solid as it's going to get. Both these guys heading into seasons with new coaching, new offensive coordinators. It'll be very interesting to see, but it's exciting that both opportunities for these players to really have big years. Jalen Hurts could possibly have a strong bounce back year through the air. We already know what he does on the ground, so we know he can put up double-digit touchdowns on the ground every single year. And then Justin Herbert, we haven't seen him reach his ceiling for several years now. But if he does, that's going to be huge for this team. And running back, he's got Devon Achane, Saquon Barkley. He's got Tank Bisbee to back him up there. He's got Josh Jacobs, Cam Scatterbo. So right there, I just listed 4 running backs that he could start every week. Cam Scatterbo, yeah, I know we have to see him stay healthy. We have to see that offense click. But then he's got guys like Woody Marks, Aaron Jones, DJ Giddens, Malik Davis. He's got a lot of depth there at the running back position. A lot of players he can possibly use here and there. Keaton Mitchell, he's been getting some good hype there in training camp. So I like that running back room. Very strong. Anytime you're starting Barkley, HN, and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Jacobs is banged up, but if he's healthy, he's a touchdown machine. He's a workhorse. And then at receiver, it may not be the deepest receiver room, but he's got high-end starters. Obviously, he's got Jamar Chase, the number 1 receiver. Right now, heading into 2026, Devontae Adams, and then he's got Chimere Dike, Ryan Flournoy, Calvin Ridley, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir. So I think that there may be what fantasy pros might be docking, the lack of depth at receiver. That's probably what I would say. But that's not too much of a problem for him because he can start 4 running backs, and then he also can start 2 tight ends because I'm going to go through his tight end room right now. He's got Tucker Kraft, Kyle Pitts, he's got Darren Waller. Those 3 right there, I mean, on a weekly basis, you could start Tucker Kraft and Kyle Pitts, and I don't see any issue with that in tight end premium. No issue at all. No issue at all starting those 2 guys. So where you may be a little thin at receiver, you can make up for it with a guy like Kyle Pitts as one of your flexes. So Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Kyle Pitts, and Tucker Kraft, starting them weekly to go with those 4 running backs and those 2 quarterbacks. I have a hard time understanding why this team wouldn't even be considered a playoff lock. And, based on the offseason moves that he did make, he's heading into this season going for it. He's definitely going for it. The moves he's made are very evident that he's going for it this year, and I don't see any reason whatsoever he shouldn't make the playoffs as long as his team stays healthy. This is a playoff lock, in my opinion. And then, unfortunately, he's got guys like Jaden Higgins and Ricky Pearsall on the IR. Dynasty pieces. Hopefully, these guys can get healthy, and they got tremendous upside, both of them. Tanner Koziol and Jerome Ford. That's his roster. I like this team. It's a good team, and again, I think it's a playoff team, and I think I would be very surprised if this team stays healthy. I'd be very surprised if they're not in the playoffs.
Well, as I mentioned, Fantasy Pros just said that they may have trouble making the playoffs, but they are at number 6, and they do have the 3rd best odds to win the championship. So they also are reflecting that it is a good team. I would agree with you. It seems to me it would be hard to imagine a team with this much depth when we think of the teams we already talked about. This team doesn't really have the issues a lot of the other teams did. And starting Kyle Pitts and Tucker Kraft, that's totally fine in a tight end premium league.
You can go further down his tight end list too. I mean, Dulcich is going to be usable as well. I don't think that's out of the question. The wide receivers are nerve wracking, but probably not, to this owner's fault. Those 2 injuries are tough. But he's, like guys like Woody Marks have been playing well. He's going to be able to get some kind of receiver if he wants, to fill the gap between Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams in an off week or whatever they need. So plenty of depth. He's going to be able to make a move and fill that gap.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like it's unanimous. Hokas, we think you're a lock for the playoffs. as long as you play your cards right. But I think this team has enough good players at different positions. Um, and earlier in the year, certainly Fantasy Pros, it's a fair weather fan of a lot of teams. They had Hoka's predicted earlier, like right after the startup draft. It was like nearly the first or second team it had ranked. For whatever reason, I think the Ricky Pearsall injury and maybe Jaden Higgins, um, along with some experts adjusting their redraft rankings, just moved him down the list. But initially, they liked Hoka's a lot. Well, moving on to number 5. This is me. It's the Tecmo Weave at 8-6, almost a mirror image of New York's finest when it comes to statistical chances of doing well. 68% chance of the playoffs and a 7% chance of the championship. So showing me kind of finishing ultimately where you don't want to finish in the dynasty or any sort of fantasy league, kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, the Tecmo, I get to run this one, so I'm actually pretty shocked at your ranking going through your team. Not only do you have some pretty good top end firepower, I feel like you have quite a bit of depth here to withstand injuries and play your flex spot with quite a few different players. Decisions might be tough, but all that to say, we start off with Lamar and Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, you got a really good start there with two top 12 guys, top 11. I don't know where Lawrence gets slotted these days, but definitely two QB1s that are going to give you a lot of high upside. The running back room again. We've got Travion, which bummer about today, but I think I saw it wasn't considered terrible, so hopefully he can get back up and not slip, pretty quickly. ETN, Jalen Warren, Jadarian Price, Rico Dowdle, Dobbins, Jonah Coleman. So I think you've got, the Denver running backs that I would want. You've got locked up. I'm not a Harvey guy, and I've heard nothing but amazing things coming out of camp here in Denver for Coleman. I really think they're bullish on him. And I do think Dobbins will get run until he can't, but I think that is a really good piece to have in your back pocket there. So running backs here, while you might not have, a Bijan or a Gibbs, I think, having like Travis A-Chain, did I say it wrong the first time? Probably. I think he's going to be a solid RB1 this year, especially with the Tyson kind of back and forth injury. They're probably going to use A-Chain pretty uniquely this year, I would think. So I like him as that piece. And then getting down to the receivers, we've got Marv, DJ, Pickens, Waddle are kind of the standouts here. Xavier Worthy, Jaden Reed, really good depth. Romeo Dobbs, he's not going to be anything exciting, but he's kind of the perfect bye week fill in because you know what you get and you're going to get some points with him. So overall, you got standouts in Pickens and I think more this year, especially. It sounds like he is expected to be looked at a lot. 140 targets is not out of the question for him this year, I think. So really a good start there. And then, we got Trey McBride to go with the aforementioned David Njoku, Dalton Kincaid, and Cade Otton in the tight end room. Obviously you can't go wrong with McBride in this format. He's going to lead that position and almost all positions in points, along with a few others. But I'm not a big fan of Dalton Kincaid. He's just not on the field enough. We were talking about his playing partner Dawson Knox earlier, and I just think it's a Batman and Robin duo there, and they can definitely put points on the board. But I don't think he has to be used because you just have such a good starting tight end there to put out every week. So I have a hard time seeing how this team isn't favored to be quite a bit better. to me, you can go down and put together a starting roster that looks, pretty good with Lammy, T-Law, A-Chain, maybe Price, Pickens, Waddle, McBride, and then you've got all of these flex players between DJ, Marv, Dobbins, Henderson. It's just a bunch of really kind of high end names to put in those last pieces. So I like what you've done. There's not a lot of picks left. You've got 3 and 4 from the Grand Chessmaster, but this is definitely a team that is built to win this year.
Yeah. I think when you look at his Tecmo's roster, he's done a tremendous job with the depth on this team. The depth is the name of the game for this roster. And when you're trying to win a championship, I always look at criteria. And the criteria to win a title, you need to have depth. You have to have depth. He has that. You have to have a solid floor throughout your roster, and I think he has that as well. And then you also have to have a ceiling. You have to have players that have that ceiling that could elevate you over top the teams that are right there with you. You have to have all three to be a championship team. And if you look throughout his roster, obviously at the quarterback position, he has both. He has floor and ceiling with Lamar and Trevor Lawrence. And then at the running back core, the one good thing about your running back core is you're not going to have a problem finding someone to start week in, week out throughout the year. Your depth is strong. You have 2 running back rooms locked down in Denver and Pittsburgh. And then you also have, I like what ATL said about Travis Achan. I mean, he's got a chance to be really good. He really does. Like one of those guys that you don't really hear too much about when you're, talking about the top running backs in the league. But he's just one of them guys that just steady. He's very steady. He'll produce for you. And in this type of roster build, that's perfect. That's no issue having him on your team. Travion Henderson, if he's healthy, if he can get him back on the field, hopefully this isn't too long term of an issue. We don't want to see him get too far behind Ramondre Stevenson and the touches, but that's a ceiling type player. That's a guy that we saw the ceiling last year, week in, week out. When Ramondre Stevenson was out, he was putting up massive numbers. He was carrying teams for a few weeks. So he's got some ceiling at running back and also floor. And then obviously tight end, ceiling, floor with Trey McBride. So throughout the roster, he has ceiling and floor. He's got depth. So he's got 3 check marks that you have to win. This is a contending roster, and I think you did a good job, man. Really did.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I think the the conclusion of the team having so much depth is really a reflection that, I believe me, I tried to get rid of some of it. I tried to move it, condense it, upgrade some positions. This is typically not the type of team I end up with that has just mass amounts of depth everywhere that I'd be looking to trade and condense, but the trade market just wasn't there. Um,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see, but it is nice to go into the year and go, okay, well, I got a lot of options here to see who, I don't have to just hope that a handful of players do well.
Yeah, I
So
mean, just look at this preseason and training camp. How many injuries we've seen to top names. You should be very thankful that you have depth. I think this season, if this training camp is any foreshadowing of how this 2026 season is going to go, you're going to want to have depth on your team, and I think you do. And I didn't even mention your receivers. George Pickens, that's a ceiling floor guy. DJ Moore, I think he's a guy that can really, really be solid on a roster build like this. So yeah, well done, man. It's a good team. Yeah, I think it's a good, solid squad. It seemed like you really took my advice all off season and did a good job with that. I really think you listened to what I was saying, and congratulations.
I did. I focused on just it was one of the pieces of advice I saw on some show. It was kind of like, well, let the draft decide what type of team you're going to be. Um, and then I just started to see my team evolve, and I said, okay, well, I can't focus on just only youth, but I also don't want to just focus on, just complete win now players either. It's a odd mix of guys like DJ Moore, also mixed with Travion Henderson. It's a kind of a hodgepodge of, I'm going to have to be doing some housekeeping to keep it competitive every year, but we'll worry about that next year. All right. Well, moving into the top 4 teams. This one is the one I'm going to cover. It's also very similar to my team in a sense of how much Fantasy Pros likes it. It is Kyler Brown, named for Kyler Murray, and I'm guessing AJ Brown probably. And they are predicted to finish 8-6, 70% chance of the playoffs. So just a couple percentages better than the last few teams we've talked about, and a 7% chance of the championship. And let's go and take a look at Kyler Brown. Let's take a look. Yes, the namesake of the team is quarterbacks here. He has some backup quarterbacks: Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Tua. Um, and so if we're not really can't count on Tua for much, you have Kyler and Dak. And I mean, certainly haven't heard anything glowing here about JJ McCarthy. Seen a lot of reports they should just trade him, get whatever they can for him at this point. Maybe some team will take him as a reclamation project. Um, but it looks like it's Kyler's job, and it's Kyler's job to lose, and it's the best team he's had in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I'm not sure a real NFL squad can be that competitive with Kyler Murray as their quarterback, but it will be an improvement from the 9 last year. At running back, he has Omarion Hampton, Tony Pollard, Bashal Tootin, and then a couple backups, Vidal and Jalen Wright. So in essence, he has 2 known starters, Hampton and Tootin. And you were saying, ATL, about Tajay Spears, I don't think we really know how it's going to go in Tennessee. And if things go south, like we can maybe imagine that they might, do they keep handing the ball off to Tony Pollard when it doesn't matter? Or do they give it to Tajay Spears? Do they give it to Nick Singleton? And go, let's at least check out what we got before next year. Um, so, you have Hampton, I like that, and Bashal Tootin. There's handful of players that have been hyped more than he has this preseason. It's really built up to the point where I've tried making offers for Bashal Tootin in various leagues, and nobody will talk to me about him. They say nope, can't do it. What did I have? One owner wanted to trade him nearly straight up for Aston Janty, and I thought that was kind of funny. I said no. He may be the starter, but he's not a first round pick yet. At wide receiver, yep, the second half of the namesake there, it is AJ Brown. He's got Josh Downs. And now with Keenan Allen there, oh man, just when we thought Josh Downs is going to get his moment to shine, and Keenan Allen comes along and ruins it all. But I'm hoping that they are not going to let a veteran overshadow really the chance to kind of see what you have in Josh Downs as more than just 3 wide receiver set type of player. I hope. I hope. See Jacoby Myers, Debo. He's got Devontae Smith, JSN. So JSN, Devontae Smith, Josh Downs, and AJ Brown. So you have 3 number 1s, JSN, Smith, and Brown. That's certainly pretty good for a redraft league. And Josh Downs, I mean, I'm sorry, Keenan Allen comes on board. He kind of, unfortunately, is just another mouth to feed. So all the pass catchers in Indy take some small hit. It's just a question of how much. And at tight end, he's really built up a pretty decent tight end core here. Harold Fannin, Juwan Johnson, Kenyon Sadiq, Brenton Strange, Jatavian Sanders. And in his taxi squad, no one too notable. Cyrus Allen, I don't know much about him, but I see a lot of hype around Cyrus Allen. Kalon Black, I guess CMC. It feels like it's a matter of time before he gets injured. It's not like he's just going to be ineffective, and it feels like an injury will end that career. But who knows? Maybe he could be like an AP that he just keeps playing, and it's just his effectiveness that degrades over time. And Katron Allen, that's not a bad gamble. Any of the Washington running backs, it's not a bad gamble on them. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I feel like this team is completely superior. I mean, that tight end crew in a tight end premium league is certainly pretty nice. And then you have the three main wide receivers. That's very nice. Tootin and Hampton, and then you have Dak and Kyler Murray. Um, yeah, I'm okay saying that this is a playoff team. Why not? And it isn't uh, a a much better lock than any of the other three teams we just talked about. Myself, Hoka's are New York's finest. They're only 70%. Everyone else was 68 or 67%. Um, yeah, there's some strong players on this team. Um, but maybe depth is lacking in some areas. But it certainly isn't the tight end core. That's a very good tight end group to have. Any comments for anyone else about Kyler Brown at number 4?
Yeah, I'm gonna just remind both of you guys. After we did the Lab 52 draft, I remember hearing a couple comments from both of you guys saying that Kyler Brown had the worst draft. I didn't say it. I didn't. I said I'm not gonna say he had the worst draft. I'm not gonna do that to him. I know. I know he remembered that. I know he remembered you guys saying he had the worst draft, and now all of a sudden you're gonna say he's a playoff team. Very
Well, that's
interesting. I'm
fantasy
just gonna throw.
pros.
I'm just gonna throw that out there. I'm just saying. You guys said he had a bad draft, and I said I'm not doing that to him. I'm not gonna do it to him. But what I will say is I'll remain consistent. I said back then I'm not saying you had the worst draft, and right now I'm gonna say you also did a great job. I mean, this team is a playoff team. I think, like you said, the tight end room is strong. JSN, AJ Brown, that's as good as it gets there. Number one, number two, Devontae Smith is another solid player there to have. Kyler Murray, we'll see, man. Good things from him here in training camp. Everyone's liking to see they're liking his arm. It looks like he's throwing the ball pretty well right now. Hampton, the running back core here is thin, but Omeir Hampton is a very strong RB1 to have on your roster. He can kind of carry that running back core there. So yeah, I think this is a good team. I think it's a playoff team, and I mean I think it's overall it's solid. I think it's a solid squad.
Well,
Well,
it's also. Oh, you can go ahead, ATL.
you didn't even let me say that I still think it's the worst draft of all time. No, I'm
I
just
love it.
kidding. No,
I love.
I do love it.
No, I appreciate you staying consistent. We just have to remain consistent. That's it. Everyone just remain consistent. That's it.
No, it's probably not as bad as what I would have made it out to be. I do think it's weaker than some of the teams we've looked at previously. Um, and Tecmo, you should look into the Cyrus Allen guy. He looks interesting, if nothing else. I mean, all that to say, there's a lot of potential, and yeah, the tight end room is great. I think Juwan Johnson actually could be pretty crazy good at the beginning of the year, along with Achan going along with Olave, and he could just fill that second receiver role. But I don't think like is which Cleveland Browns quarterback would you be more excited to see Fannin playing with right now? I think
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one my answer is, but I don't know that switching because they're going to go to Shadur at some point and potentially even move on to their third quarterback at some point just to get a look. So he could be a hammer or he could be kind of streaky, but no, I think it's a good team, and it's just I like a couple of the other teams before this maybe a little better.
Yeah, and I'm just saying this is what Fantasy Pros has to say. We just use that as an
Don't
outline weapon.
don't
X, you
take
know that.
don't take the weight off your shoulder here, Tecmo. You said it back then. Don't take it off your shoulder. But yeah,
Okay.
I I
Well,
agree with ATL. I think that a couple of other teams we discussed earlier, I think are stronger contenders. But I think the Fantasy Pros does have it right. I think this is a playoff contender, and for all the reasons ATL mentioned as well.
yeah, and I mean, I think, going back to, well, is it not that good of a team? I think it was, if I had to complain about the team, it's just not the type of team I would want to end up with after a draft. Because this team didn't do a lot of trading, but they did do one trade, and it was to bring in Devontae Smith. So this team didn't have Devontae Smith to start out with. It only had JSN, Jacoby Myers, Josh Downs, and AJ Brown. So you bring in another one at that point. 2, Bashal Tutin. He can pat himself on the back and say, I got a value. Bashal Tutin's value has risen since we did the startup draft. But when you're looking to anchor your team with an older, I don't want to say Dak is inconsistent, but it's not like he's consistently great year in, year out. No, he's not. And then you
Or
have
in an even
Kyler,
year too.
right? And
Dreaded
then you have
even year for Dak.
and you got Kyler Murray. Like, okay, you beat out JJ McCarthy. Way to go. I'm sure you could beat out Quinn Ewers as well. Like that doesn't make you a guy that I necessarily want to be locking myself into in this format. And you got Omar and Hampton. Very good job. Bashal Tutin, very good job. Tony Pollard, waste. That's a waste because this team is not like it's not a totally this is going to be the league champion type of team. And then you're left with JSN, Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown. So it's almost setting itself up where it has to be a win now, absolutely win now type of team. And I'm not sure that this roster really gets it done. And I do like what you said too, ATL. When we do look at the tight end group, it's also it's on the flip side. It's another weird combination of all these sort of win now wide receivers with really nice dynasty assets at tight end. Harold Fan and Kenyon Sadiq, and to a lesser degree, Brenton Strange. Um, is that going to equate to winning you your league if that's what you're going for? Not really. No. There's too many mouths to feed and not enough quarterback talent in Cleveland to feed everybody. But I also agree the clear winner with the Jordan Tyson injury is Juwan Johnson. So, but I can see this team making the playoffs. It's just maybe not a team that I would like. How about that? I'm not saying I loved it, Weapon X. I just said that this is what Fantasy Pros had to say, and I can see what they're seeing. But that is one of the downsides, kind of the confirmation bias of using these programs, that it puts out a suggestion and then it's easy to be like, hey, yeah, I agree with that. So, all right, well, let's move on to the top 3 here. I think this is the last one I will be covering. This is a very savvy, tough owner, the Grand Chris Master, or Chiss Master. He'll have to tell us what that name is all about. It says he's going to finish in third. At 9 and 5, 76% chance, 11% chance. So actually less than Hoka's at number 6. But even though he's going to finish in third, once again, that's Fantasy Pros baking in your division and your schedule. And this is a owner I've played with in different leagues. He always does a good job. So it's kind of one of these people, unless he's punting for the year, I'd imagine he has, some tricks up his sleeve and he knows what he's doing when it comes to drafting. For draft picks, he's got a first and 2 seconds, and he owns his own first. That's good. And at quarterback, let's take a look here. Is this team worthy of the number 3 ranking? Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, and Malik Willis. Well, probably not based on your quarterback strength. We can't be the. I mean, I'm willing to take the L if Malik Willis is just terrific. Seems to me he's a depth piece. He's a rental for 1 year. That's it. And even if that, that's why I picked up Quinn Ewers. I'm thinking there's a chance Malik Willis either gets hurt or something happens. Somebody else is going to have to play quarterback because can really Malik Willis be the guy? But we've talked about him enough in the offseason. So if your starters are going to be Brock Purdy, that's decent. And Baker Mayfield, that's also decent. That sounds like 2 quarterbacks Weapon X might have. Moving on to running back. I remember here looking at this, or this is where it gets real kind of iffy. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, terrific. That's your first round pick, and Derrick Henry. All right, terrific. You better hope that both of them play all the time, all year, and Derrick Henry doesn't regress at all because there's nobody else left. Justice Hill, Alvin Kamara, Isaiah Pacheco. I hope. I hope my sleeper status on him plays out. And if it does, maybe this team doesn't look as bad, but it shows him as questionable with an MCL knee injury. But it isn't how I would want to build my running back group, hoping that somebody is all of a sudden just going to have a career resurgence. That's not, you don't want to bank on guesses like that. At wide receiver, let's see here. You got Rashee Rice, Alec Pierce, Ladd McConkey, Chris Godwin, and Jordan Addison. Okay. You got Rice and Ladd McConkey, and then a handful of guys, Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin, Alec Pierce, people that at best are going to be maybe a weekly wide receiver too. And then at tight end, he has the cream of the crop, number one prize treasure. He's got Brock Bowers, and then Mark Andrews, Oscar Delp, so Mason Taylor. It's a decent overall group, and he's got Brock Bowers. That's who you want in this type of format. Not sure 100% why this team would be considered much, much better than everyone else. Which I guess they aren't necessarily. They're only 6% better than Kyler Brown, but they are a 4% chance better option to win the championship. Maybe it's because you have Brock Bowers, because you have the big names and Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, you got Mr. Stable and steady, you got Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield. You do have the third quarterback in Malik Willis. It doesn't care about dynasty. Rashee Rice, it'll be exciting to see him finally play. But Alec Pierce, yeah, I mean, I guess kind of questionable to start off the year, and he's not a true wide receiver one anyway, even if he got paid like it. And he does have Malik Washington. Somebody will have to emerge in Miami, and he has Tutu Atwell. Yeah, no, I mean, I'd say this team is okay. But like a lot of the teams we've talked about, could use some more depth. Certainly at running back, and hey, Grand Master, I have a lot of running backs, and you have very few. Why don't you talk to me, and we could work something out. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that excited about this team. But I guess when you've covered all the positions, and they have some decent players at each position, they're lacking the depth like a lot of teams. I don't know. This is one of the teams I would say, while he's predicted third, well, maybe it could finish. This team could finish seventh as well. And a team like New York's Finest, one of these borderline teams, or Jaden Daniels' Den, they just kind of jump in there instead. I don't think this team is a lock for the playoffs, but if they were to make it in there, I'm certainly not going to be surprised because he has all the main positions covered. And he does have Brock Bowers, who should be certainly a top 15 scoring player this year, maybe even a top 10.
Yeah, I'll let you take this ATL if you want.
Yeah, super interesting build. There are a lot of handcuffs on every position. All of the quarterbacks are pretty much handcuffed outside of Malik. We have two running back rooms, and then Kamara. And then we've got multiple double ups in the wide receiver room, and then Bowers and Mayer in the tight end room. So we've got a lot of players that are on the same team, and so he's gonna have a starting lineup that will be the starter for those teams. There's just really limits kind of your pop potential on anybody. A lot of the depth pieces here are just made up of the backups to his own players. So I don't. Yeah, this one's tough too. I don't think it's a bad team, and I think the high end of it could be really, really good. Rice can play at a high level, match that with Gibbs, and if Henry keeps trucking for a year, yeah, I mean it's a good team. I can't think of a build that I've seen that's been this kind of heavily dedicated to just a handful of teams. So hopefully, it works out and it plays out correctly for him.
Yeah, I did notice that too. He's got the handcuffs at pretty much every position. I don't know how you can really handcuff receiver. That's a interesting strategy. But yeah, there's high end talent. Obviously, Gibbs. I mean, boy, he can do week to week is ridiculous. Obviously, so you got Gibbs and Brock Bowers, the high end players at those positions, gives you the weekly advantage. Rashi Rice and Lad McConkey, you're going to have a really solid floor with those two guys, and also ceiling with them. Uh, I will disagree slightly with Tecmo about Malik Willis. I'm starting to think a little more towards him as a guy that he could potentially be someone that they could build around. I'm not saying he's the future quarterback. He's gonna take it over. I'm just saying he has an opportunity. And I think the contract is giving him that opportunity to possibly play beyond this year as a starter. Yeah, I think the thing about him is if he is going to run as much as we expect him to run, he needs to be able to stay healthy. Obviously, we know that. But I think he's a much better thrower than I think people give him credit for. What I saw towards the end of last year with him stepping in there for Green Bay, I really think his throwing compared to what he was looking like in Tennessee, something changed in the way he throws. He is a much better thrower than he gives credit for, than people give him credit for. And he's got some young receivers on the team. It's obviously it's not a great receiver core, but there's young talent on that team that can emerge. ATL mentioned Caleb Douglas earlier in the show. I think there's some talent there. So I would think I think Malik Willis, if he's your third quarterback, I think that's a good third quarterback to have. But I'm really, really interested to see him play this year. It's not going to be a good team, but I kind of feel people are kind of underestimating him as a guy that, who knows, he could be their quarterback, and they could just draft Jeremiah Smith instead. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there. This is a playoff team. I would say instead of top three, I would feel more comfortable ranking them maybe four or five or six instead of one, two, or three. That's how I kind of feel about this team. It is a good team and it has high end assets. It's interesting build, like ATL said.
Weapon X, real quick. I'll be fast on this. On the Malik Willis piece, I think Miami's done a very kind of interesting thing here that's going to play out pretty well for them, because if he plays well, they're going to have a later pick, and they probably will still take a quarterback, but one that might not be ready to start. So you've got Willis locked in for a couple of years, give him the runway. Maybe you trade him once your first round pick is ready to go. And if Willis face plants, they're going to get a high pick and they're going to get one of the best quarterbacks, and they're off to the races that way. So I think Miami is kind of like, you know what, throw him out there and let's see what happens. And it's going to be a win either way.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. He's one of the more interesting players, I think, heading into this year, just because he hasn't had the opportunity to actually be the guy, and he's getting that opportunity now, and the talent's there, but it's got to all be put together. And he's not in a great situation. That's what makes it a very interesting situation. If he can emerge out of this situation, there's no reason why he can't be the future quarterback. We'll see what happens. So Tecmo, obviously, you don't feel that way. But I think in just heading into 2026, he's a guy that if you have him in your super flex option, that you're gonna have, there's high upside there with his running potential.
Well, I base all of my predictions on my fantasy leagues, their projected stats.
You cannot do
And
that.
and
No.
according to my fantasy league, I know you guys are talking about, I'm sticking with my fantasy league, which
Nah,
uses fantasy sharks. So I guess if this is a shout out not to use fantasy sharks, it
don't.
might have to be that. Malik Willis, so he's a rushing quarterback. He's known to rush, but according to Fantasy Sharks in my fantasy league, he's only projected to run for 111 yards. He's gonna run for less yards as the starter this year than he did last year as the backup.
Yeah,
So that's yeah. I don't
I'm
know
looking
why
at
they
it now. 32 carries. That's what they said. Was he going to play 2 games? I guess that's what they're thinking.
Well, that's just the first game. I think you just have the stats for.
Yeah, that's with
Okay.
week 1 stats. 32 carries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, I think we all seem to kind of agree that maybe he's a little overranked at number 3, but still has the upside to make the playoffs. All right. Well, number 2 here. There's 2 more teams, and number 2 is a team by the name of Brahma Bulls, and they are projected to finish 9-5, 79%. So remember, from all the way from number 7 to number 2, we went from 67% to 79%. Uh, ultimately, that's not a lot in the world of fantasy pros and their predictions. But they have Brahma Bulls finishing as the runner-up in this league, 79%, and the second best chance to win the championship at 15%. Is this you, ATL? Do you have Brahma Bulls?
This is, yes. So, yeah, I like this team. Starting with the quarterbacks, they've got the number 1 on the board with Josh Allen. Bit of a drop off down to CJ Stroud, and then just some other guys with Aller and Richardson behind them. But pairing Allen, with anybody really works, and I actually kind of like the take Josh Allen and then wait on the second quarterback just because of the advantage you get with filling in your roster the rest of the way. So getting down to the running backs, we've got Brees Hall, Bucky Irving, Stevenson, and Harvey. Maybe Rashad White. Those are kind of the top names here. Um, I think that's a decent room. I think that'll get it done. You're probably going to start Brees Hall every week that he's healthy, and then you're just going to fill in your RB2 spot with, if Harvey starts getting a little more run, maybe he's in there, or if Irving starts off well again. I think he's been a little bit beat up in terms of his value, so I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out and runs well. All that to say, pretty good running back room, and then you've got Rashad White sitting there and Jordan Mason as some depth pieces that, if there's an injury, they really have quite a bit of value down the stretch. The wide receiver room, boy, top end is pretty good here. We've got CD, Neighbors, Nico, Stribling, DK Metcalf, and then some other guys. Tecmo's favorite Keenan Allen is making a charge here to play. So, and then he's got Pat Bryant, who again one of the biggest wave makers we've had out in Denver, just in local reporting. So, really, really strong top end talent here, and he does have quite a bit of depth in the wide receiver room. I'm shocked to see how well Stribling has played, but I don't think it can really be denied anymore. Maybe this was their time to hit. So I really like the wide receivers here. Getting into the tight end room, it's a little bit old, but Kelsey, Hawkinson, and I think Arroyo has a chance to be a pretty exciting player. Maybe this year, maybe next year, but he gives you a little bit of youth at the tight end position that you're missing with the top 2 guys, probably in Kelsey and Hawkinson. Kelsey top 5 tight end or something last year, I believe. Maybe he was even the first tight end. I doubt that's going to play itself out, but him and Mahomes, I think, will be a good connection until they retire or one of them retires. So that will definitely work for a playoff run. I really like this roster. There's plenty of depth um, for your flex spots. The only point of concern for me would be the depth at quarterback. Should Allen go out, then it gets real ugly. So you just have to really ride with Josh Allen, which there are a lot worse places to be than doing that.
Yeah, I think one of the big keys here in this roster. If Malik Neighbors is healthy, if he's looking like himself, it's going to give him a massive advantage. It's going to be you're going to be hard pressed to find a better receiver core for 2026, than Nico Collins, CeeDee Lamb, and Malik Neighbors. That's as strong as it gets. And then if you get any kind of production of Keenan Allen as well, that's really solid. Running back room, like you said, it'll get it done. With this roster, that'll get it done. There is not, the top high end asset at running back that's going to win you weeks, but it's going to get it done because he has enough there. And just a little comedy here. I just, now that we're talking about fantasy sharks, when you mentioned Deshaun Stribling, I'm going to look at his projected stats for the year. He's projected for 6 catches and 93 yards, for the season. So I don't know if your analysis is baking that into it, but 11 targets is his season projection. I don't, Tecmo, I don't know where these stats come from, but this is 6 for 93 for Stribling is his projection. That's strange to me, but he's a guy that's going to be very interesting to see. I think a lot of hype around him, but it is preseason, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this is a top 3 team. I think this one here is a top 3 team. I think they have it right as far as that goes. But you're right, though. If there is an injury to his top quarterback, that's when things could spiral downhill a little bit for this roster because there's not anything much outside of what he has there. Josh Allen, CJ Stroud. I don't know if you guys heard earlier this week, he won $70 million per year. Do you think he'll get that?
Probably.
Do you think he'll get $70 million? I mean,
I think
I was blown away when I heard that. What
I think
$70
he
million a year?
probably the numbers get all inflated every handful of years, and
I know, I understand that, but $70 million would put him number 1 in the NFL in NFL history. You got to at least do something. You got to do something first to get that. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny to hear.
He's just doing the correct negotiation. You start at a high number and then you come down.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think if you start that high, you might you got to play like a $70 million player first to even get close to that number. But hey, who knows? Maybe he's gonna have a big year. I don't know. I just think CJ Stroud, he's got a lot of pressure on him. He's got a lot of talent. We've seen him early in his career do well. I'm not counting him out at all. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think he's really focused, and he's a guy that I think he can bounce back and do well. But I think I just thought that was kind of funny, the numbers that I heard being thrown out there.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Pretty ridiculous, but I would tend to think they'll work something out, where he's at least shown some promise, and unless Houston ends up in a good position to draft a replacement next year, it'll just be a question of, well, who do they have that's any better? What are their other options? But let's round it out here with the final team we have not talked about yet, which is Midnight Toker. They are definitely a team that is built to win it all. So this is a team that isn't going to look super great from a dynasty perspective, or from a redraft win it now perspective. They're looking pretty good. 10-4 is the projected record, and they are the only team that's a true lock to make the playoffs at 97%. And according to Fantasy Pros, they have a 37% chance of the championship, which is more than double, plus a few percentage points, more than double any other team. And who's going to close us out here with Midnight Toker, the predicted champion?
That is me one more time. So let's even this out at 4 here, guys. So Midnight Toker, yeah, I think really good team. The overarching theme I'll point out on this team is really high risk factors. This could be a juggernaut, and there could be some weeks where there are very few points scored, or there could be some injuries that go along with a lot of these guys. So, getting into it, we've got Mahomes and Caleb Williams at the top of our quarterback list. Aaron Rodgers there for QB3 spot. should be fine as long as he stays healthy as a third quarterback for bye week fill in. Not exciting, but still. So really good top end talent there at the QB position, puts him in line to be competitive with any of the teams we've looked at so far. The running back room starts with Chase Brown, Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift. He does have Emmett Johnson, who has been very intriguing and very very exciting in the preseason. So that'll be a fun player to watch as he continues to grow in the league. But again, Chase Brown, I love that guy to put in your RB1 spot every week because McCaffrey really, boy, already nervous about him sitting out practices and everything, and it could be a game winner, and it could be a nothing. You just never know. So Montgomery kind of falls into that same category for me as well. I think Marks has made a big move up the list with him, and I think he's going to have a tough time holding him off all year. Swift, I think, is going to be in a good spot, so that should work. Receivers, though, we get into Olave, Christian Watson, Jamison Williams as the top three, and I think here's where you can kind of see what I mean with the risk factors kind of continuing down the board. Olave, really, he could be a top 5 receiver this year, but one more knock on him and he could be done for good. Really don't hope that happens, but Watson's struggled to stay on the field when he has. It's been really exciting, but obviously you got to get that to be consistent. JMO too. I'm much higher on him than I think consensus. I think he's an excellent player, and they just untapped what he's looking at for his career last year. But that said, his career is kind of muddled with ups and downs, and there are goose eggs that go along with the 30-point games. So we just kind of carry a lot of risk through the team, and then you get into the tight ends, and we've got Colson Loveland, which is obviously almost as good as you can do. We're in basically the top tier 2 in the tight end ranks with him. But then we got George Kittle which again could be a home run, could be a double play, who knows? But he does still have his first pick, or I'm sorry, he has Kyler Brown's first pick, Kyler Brown's second pick, and a 4th pick next year. So he has quite a bit of talent and hasn't completely, taken away his picks for next year. I do think that the top end here could be, easily like 16-0 the whole way. And, it could go kind of sideways should some of these things go wrong. But this has a lot of depth, a lot of good players, a lot of players I think that would go in on other people's rosters, in a wide receiver 3 spot where he's going to play him in a flex. So ahead of the game in a lot of spots.
Yeah, for sure. I think he did a really good job building a roster that can compete this year. CMC obviously is one of those guys that, when he's on the field, when he's playing, I mean, there's not many players that are going to produce the way he does. Just the way he's using that offense, just touches the ball so much through the air, on the ground. So I think, and then Chase Brown, another guy, very consistent runner and a really good offense. I could see him finishing as a top 5 running back. I think that's the type of upside he has just because of that offense and what he can do on a weekly basis. You got obviously 2 top end quarterbacks, and then you got Colson Loveland, who was, what he was doing towards the end of last year. He was absolutely on fire, and I think he's going to continue to play really well this year. George Kittle's a guy that you can plug in here and there. And the thing about George Kittle, if he doesn't look good right off the bat, it's for this roster, it's not going to hurt him at all. He's not really counting on him right now anyway. This guy, he already has his locked in starter at tight end. JMO, I agree with you. I think Jamison Williams is a player that he is obviously an up and down player, but he also is a guy that in a roster like this, he, like I was talking earlier about Tecmo's team, you have to also have ceiling to win championships, and he's the ultimate ceiling player. One of those guys that when he does hit is a week winning player. He can win your week. He did it multiple times last year. So yeah, he may not be the steady floor that you're gonna want, but early on in the year, you could get a pretty decent floor if Laporte is missing some games. So let's see what happens there. Christian Watson, another ceiling type player. So I think the receiving room, as far as the floor is concerned, may not be as high. Chris Olave's got a solid floor, and if he's out there and playing every week, you shouldn't have many issues with that. It's just the other two that he would start. It may not be the highest floor players, but again, with a roster like this, he's got enough floor to be able to take some lower weeks from guys like Christian Watson, and then knowing that in future weeks they can really boom. So yeah, I think it's a good roster. I definitely think it's a team that's going to have an opportunity to contend for a championship, and just like Fantasy Pros thinks, and just like I think we both, all three of us think, this is a championship contender. And I don't think there's a runaway championship team in this league at all. I think the six playoff teams that Fantasy Pros has here, I think they could all possibly do it. I don't think there's a runaway title champion in this league. Let's do it real quick. I know this has been a long marathon show, but real quick, I'm gonna list the team who I think will win the title, and you guys do. I still think, in my opinion, I think Hokas has the best redraft 2026 roster for this year. If I had to make a pick right now with no data for the season, I would say Hokas would be my title winner. What do you guys think?
I'd have to. It's hard for me not to be influenced by Fantasy Pros, and also knowing that Midnight Toker has gambled. As ATL said, it's a lot of volatility and a lot of risk, but clearly this team has been set up to win now. This you're supposed to win now, and he still has a first round pick to use. I would be shocked if this team makes it to the trade deadline and it passes the trade deadline and that first isn't spent on another good player. Whereas Hokas does not have another first to give. Um, so while Hokas has a good team, I just, while there's some risk here, I just don't see everything going wrong. Not that everything can't go wrong, but if he spends it that first in a smart way, for a team like this, it wouldn't be about really upgrading. I don't think it would be. I mean, it would be adding another true starter for that first and the second. Put that together, and you get another. You get an upgrade somewhere, but you add in another star to this team to fill in for where there's injuries. I just have a hard time seeing it go wrong. But that all I'm going to guarantee for any team, for at least for Midnight Tokers, you make it to the semis because anybody can lose in the final 2 weeks. It doesn't really matter how good your team is at that point. There's ups and downs throughout the year, but I'll give it to Midnight Toker. I think there's too much at stake. It's unlikely that everything goes wrong, and he still has some draft picks left to use. Um, yeah, I think he'll be his plan will work.
Well, I'll go a different way. I do agree with you, Tecmo. I think he looks like the favorite right now on paper, and I can see 8 different ways how that team wins. Wins it all, or it is really competitive all the way to the end. So I'm gonna pick a different team, but I think Brahma Bulls is a solid team, and if Allen stays healthy, I think that team has a really good shot at it as well. Tecmo, as a consolation gift, I really like your team too. I think there's a good chance you're going to be kind of in the thick of things by the end of it too.
Well, thank you very much. I always hope to just make it to the semis. Then cross my fingers,
You
because
just got to
everything
get hot at the end.
that's
It's that
that's
3 week
truly it.
stretch, and if you go, I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah, I always say making the playoffs is skill. How you do in the playoffs is luck. Well, you're right, Weapon X. It's been a marathon, but we made it to the end. So, thank you for joining us this week, ATL. I know next week we're going to cover the longest running dynasty league that I've been in, the Blue Ribbon Championship League. We're going to do a preseason preview. I hope anyone that's enjoyed sticking with us for this show has enjoyed it. I'm excited for the season to start. Um, Thanks again, ATL, for participating and joining us. And at least I'll let you two kind of close out and say your final thoughts. But I'll close out my own segment here by saying this is not Dynasty advice. This is Dynasty Insight. I'll see you both next week.
Yeah, I'll let you close it out, ATL. I don't have much more to say. It's a fun show. Great league. Really fun talking about the league and yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Kyler Brown. You know who gave you a bad grade on your draft, but you also know who backed you up on the show. So just gonna say that one more time.
Awesome. Um, no, thank you guys so much. It's been so fun. All of these episodes are great to be a part of, and the league as well. I think one of the fun things is the league setup and the way that we did the draft has really put the league in a competitive stance for the first year. Um, it's going to be fun to watch. Apparently, I'm not going to be part of that, but all of that to say, I'm happy to be around and chat with you guys anytime. So thank you so much. Good luck this year. Not too much Tecmo since I have your picks, but just the right amount.
All
Of
right, I
course.
appreciate you guys. Yeah, it's been a fun time, and yeah, everyone take care and have a great week.